Stay tuned to the end of this video for a word to our patrons. Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Talk FGO Wanted, the show where we let you know if you want to roll that 5-star. Well, this Wanted is going to the dogs, but we'll find good literature there. We'll also find another excuse for me to use the Okami soundtrack. When will I stop? The answer? Never. You couldn't pay me enough, but you could try. Anyway, we're going to talk about SSR writer Kyokutei Bakin. Or are we going to talk about it? Anyway, pay attention to our upcoming history, lore, mechanics, and more. Because I got that dog in me. This is not the end of the dog puns. I have a header, by the way. I don't need it for the show notes or the script, but I have a header, which says, today's prank victim TM if you've never seen that screen cap. But I did just write Bakin in there, so that's the mood we're at right now. Also, I need to relax and unwind a little. I had some technical difficulties setting the recording part up. The script is fine, though. So, in our real life, starting at the top, Kyokutei Bakin was born under the name Takizawa Okikuni on the 4th of July. If I was a better editor, I'd insert some American music here, but I'm crunched for time. In 1767, so not 4th of July time because we weren't America yet. But he wrote under Kyokutei Bakin and several other names as a pen name. Most scholars just refer to him now as Bakin, or his full pen name, Kyokutei Bakin, but sometimes Takizawa Bakin is used. Bakin was the 5th son of Takizawa Okiyoshi, a minor samurai in Edo. Okiyoshi had previously served under Matsudaira Nobutsuno. You may remember him from the Okyu event. But he left that position to serve under Matsuzawa Bunkuro, and married Bunkuro's adopted daughter, Omon, who was Bakin's mother, before he did return to serve the Matsudaira household. Fortunately, Okiyoshi was known to be a heavy drinker, and it was reported he died of gout in 1773, which led to the slow decline of his family. Bakin's eldest brother, Rabun, became a ronin in 1776, and bounced around to several positions. His second brother, Keichu, was adopted by another family, which made Bakin the head of the household at age 9. Their mother, Omon, moved in with Rabun in 1778, but she died of malnutrition in 1785. Bakin served the Matsudaira household until he was 14, at which point he declared himself a ronin and left. He would bounce around a couple of samurai positions with his brothers until Keichu died in 1786, and Rabun died much later in 1798. This left Bakin as the sole heir of the Takizawa line, and made him committed to the restoration of his family status. I mentioned that Bakin was the 5th son, or rather, Takizawa Okikuni was. His 2 other older brothers had died in infancy. Now, Bakin studied in a variety of fields in an attempt to find jobs prior to 1790. He studied medicine, Confucian scholarship, he worked as a comedian, a poet, a fortune teller, and several other odd professions before getting his writing career started. In 1790, he met the author Sento Kyoden, who would then become his mentor and helped him publish his first book in 1791 under the pen name Dae Sanjin, disciple of Kyoden. Bakin would also ghostwrite several pieces for Kyoden. He would only first use the pseudonym, I should say, which is how it's written in my script. I'm just an idiot, a dingus. Everybody make sure to tell me how much of a dingus I am in the comments. Anyway, he first used the pseudonym Kyokutei Bakin in 1792, approximately. Bakin would continue to publish works and improve his life. He married Aida Oyaku, who was the owner of a shoe shop. They had 4 children. Bakin would assist in this shop until the death of his mother-in-law, whence he moved to writing full-time. By the way, during this period, funny note, like no other good place to put this, if Bakin wrote something for publication he wasn't personally satisfied with, he would sign it Kairaishi, disciple of Kyokutei Bakin. So he would make up a fake student to publish his works he didn't like in, and several people would go looking for this mysterious disciple. Now, around the year 1800, Bakin started taking walking tours of Japan to improve his writing. These would usually go for several months at a time. This not only served as a form of research into historical locations, but also, during some of his walks, would be during severe flooding or earthquake seasons, he would see the plight of everyday people. It gave a lot of his works a human element, which made them popular across all social strata. He had, experience with all kind of walks of life. So, by 1810, Bakin had firmly secured himself as a professional writer. He was earning more money than his family's stipend under the Matsudaira had, and by 1813, he had published more than 30 historical novels, which was his primary genre of writing. Part of his success was due to collaboration with famous artists and illustrators. He worked with several over the years. This includes the famous Hokusai, who collaborated with Bakin on 13 works, but their partnership had ended by 1815 for unknown reasons. They didn't really write down exactly why, but we just know that they stopped working together. Probably clash of personality. Now, by 1820, Bakin had achieved his goal of restoring his family position. His only son, Sohaku, was appointed clan physician under Matsumai Akihiro, which made them officially samurai once again. You know, his son was a proper retainer. And in 1827, Sohaku married a woman named Omichi. That was not her original name, but that's what she is most commonly called. She'll be important to Bakin's further work later. But this is because Bakin had started publishing his most famous work, the Nanso Satomi Hakenden, which is usually translated as the Eight Dog Chronicles, in a serialized format starting in 1814. It would take him 28 years to publish all 106 volumes, and you think One Piece is long. Now, Bakin's health began to decline in 1818, but it took a sharp dip in the 1830s. It slowed his rate of writing. When his son Sohaku died in 1835, it was a serious blow to the family, as Bakin had already lost sight in one of his eyes, reportedly in 1834, and he seriously considered retiring, but did work to finish the Hakenden. Importantly, this was quite a struggle, as he was completely blind from rheumatism by 1840. But luckily, Omichi, his daughter-in-law, was well-versed in literature, so she served to write in his stead. There's a fancy word in here that you can find on Wikipedia, amnesis. I didn't put it in my notes because I figured that might be a little too highbrow for some of y'all. She served as the figurative ghostwriter, the penmanship, taking his dictation. So she helped him complete the Hakenden and also respond to various correspondence and other writing features. Bakin died of heart failure, reportedly, in 1848 at the ripe old age of 81. So he lasted quite a while. And of course, Kyokutei Bakin was a huge influence on Japanese literature. There was a cultural renaissance period starting roughly 1804, which coincided with his rise and led to serialized fiction becoming much more popular. Bakin was known for his iconic historical novels, obviously such as the Hakenden, but also the Shinsetsu Yumiharizuki, which was a famous collab between himself and Hokusai, and also was a historical fiction piece, I should say, about Minamoto no Tametomo. He also wrote the Keisei Suikoden, the women's water margin, which is like the water margin, but with women. And he also published a lot of scholarly works and essays. He was known for his didactic style. He would speak like a teacher, instructing the reader on what was going on. But he was also foundational for the genre or style of Japanese literature called Gesaku literature. The best way to describe this style is that it's more playful or lighthearted. It's written with an intent to be read by a wide audience. It's not, seeking the perfect art or creating a piece just for, literary mastery. The idea is you are producing a commercial work that lots of people are going to read and pay for. Essentially, genre's original genre. Sorry, I said genre instead of Japan. Japan's original genre for popular and commercial fiction. Hey, did that serialized nature remind you of anything? So, Bakin was also known for translating and adapting historical Chinese works. He set a standard for many Japanese scholars and authors of his time and in the future, and his works are very popular for adaptation. And the time period when they were written, they spawned many plays based on them, and even now have modern adaptations in anime, video games, and the like. Hey, that's what you're watching right now. That's why we're here. So moving on to some Fate-specific stuff. You'll notice that throughout all of that, I referred to Bakin as a male, and indeed, in history he was. And a tall guy, by all accounts. But earlier, I did mention his daughter-in-law, Omichi. This is very similar in a sense to the servant Hokusai, where Omichi basically played the role of Kyokutei Bakin, who was a pseudonym during Bakin's final years. She physically wrote the text that he dictated to her, and so, in a sense, she is also the author Kyokutei Bakin, at least through the logic of fate, which has been demonstrated perfectly. But it's her body that's the physical form of the servant Bakin. However, this is a little bit more like a Rena/Sima Yi situation, or several other combo servants like that. Unlike with Hokusai the servant, Bakin is not displaced, so he is in fact the dominant personality of the servant, but Omichi also sometimes makes her personality known. You can see this through some slightly different expressions and also in their different ways of speaking. But wait, there's more. In the third ascension, the servant is also influenced by Fusahime, the fictional character from the Hakenden. Fusahime is a princess who becomes a guardian deity of the Satomi clan, and from her come the Eight Dog Warriors. Why exactly does she manifest in the servant? Unclear, but it makes things more messy. Honestly, it'll probably come up in the story. But also, fun factoid for you, she has the Murasame blade, the sword of rain and dew, which you have probably seen in a Final Fantasy or many other Japanese games, but originates in the Hakenden. That's actually where that's from. It's the protagonist's magical sword. For just a quick character design note, I believe it's Omichi speaking when it's said, but it is mentioned by the servant that in the early Ascensions, you'll see she has dog ears on. Those are simply a headband. They're just a fashion accessory, not actually dog-eared. It's very funny. Now, Bakin is obviously going to be primarily featured in the signature Hakenden event, which is going to presumably teach you a lot more about the Eight Dog Chronicles, so I'm not really getting into the plot of that. So keep that in mind. There may also be some notes as well for Bakin to come back. They're going to have a banner during the Mystic Eye Symphony next year, but as far as I can tell, that event doesn't seem to have a traditional bonus servant list, so I'm not sure if Bakin is featured in that story, but I did see some sprites of the Dog Warriors that are supposed to be from Summer, so at the very least, the 8 Dog Warriors are going to cameo in what will be last year's Summer, the second Servafez Summer, the one we think of as the LB6 Summer. But again, I am not entirely sure if Kyokutei Bakin is directly involved in that story. Now, onto mechanics. So, Bakin is an SSR limited rider because they ride a dog. Isn't that neat? Bakin is fairly low attack, higher HP, similar stat spread as Maeve, but not quite the same numbers. Squiggled a little bit in the different directions. She is QQAA, average hits, and honestly slightly below average NP gain at 0.41. You're doing 3 hits on those quicks and arts, so it's a little underperforming. Baken's NP is the Hakenden itself. It's an AoE arts. It gives a 30% buff versus Demonic first for 1 turn. It gives 8 stars afterward, for obvious reasons, and based on overcharge, it does bonus damage versus evil enemies. Pretty standard stuff. First skill is a 20 to 30% battery on self, a 10% battery for the rest of the team, and generates 5 to 15 stars. Pretty generalized buff there. Now, the second skill is probably her best. It is a targeted buff, and it gives the targeted ally 10 to 20% of arts, buster, quick, crit damage, and NP damage. All of those are, 1 ally for 3 turns, but also gives them a 500 to 1k heal, and a 1x 3 turns debuff, immune, and evade. It's pretty comprehensive. Minimum cooldown is 6 there. The final skill is a pretty simple 20 to 30% arts buff on self, but also is an on-attack buff, where Bakin raises the party's attack by 5% for 3 turns whenever they hit with an arts card. So, if you stack that up, you can get some slightly above-average buffs there. Passives are Riding B, so those quick cards are going to do a little better than you think, Magic Resistance B, and Divinity C for a little bit extra damage. Now, Bakin sadly doesn't quite reach what you might think of their expected heights for Fame mechanically. I don't want to say they're a bad unit. There's been a lot of discussion about, are units bad, are units good? And then, of course, we've buffed Konstantinos, so all of that sort of discussion became eventually irrelevant. But I will say, while it doesn't seem like a very mechanically complex kit, it's fairly well put together, and arts riders are probably not as popular as you might think. Obviously, looping with Summer Mordred and Rider Da Vinci are well-known strats. They have been, part of the system for a long, long time. People were contriving how to make Summer Mordred loop, pre-break bars. I was going to say pre-Castoria, but even more pre than that, like in the ancient times. So, obviously, you're going to deal with some long-standing competition. Now, Bakin does distinguish herself with a unique focus on trait damage in 2 popular areas, Demonic Trait, Evil Alignment. This sets her apart from Da Vinci's just sheer potential to keep generating NP, and Odysseus's far stronger defensive focus. If you don't have access to those arts riders, or to other ones in the AoE slot, Bakin will slot right into your team for farming and wiping ads. That said, like Da Vinci, Bakin has potential to support the team with her party battery effect on that first skill, attack buffs which can juice up over time, and if you max out her targeted buff, as I mentioned earlier, it's a minimum 6-turn cooldown, so that's not terrible for longer play. And it lasts 3 turns if you're going for the 3-turn strat. Obviously, she can use this on herself to be your offensive anchor. That would mean that she's getting, 20% NP up probably, but a maximum of 50% on arts up before NP, which is probably pretty good. Got some other effects in there. But you can also use it on others as a semi-support. Though I will say single-target arts riders are about as rare as the AoE ones, so you may end up pairing her with the single-target arts Berserker instead, which is arguably better. That's a robust and long-standing role of using ST arts Berserkers. Vlad's been in the game since day one, and Galatea has, the award for not quite as good as Vlad. though both of them are now significantly improved, obviously, by buffs. So, Bakin can be used in a flexible manner. For CE selection, her own battery is a bit odd. It maxes out at 30%, so you may have to play with some numbers. The 50% CEs may not be the best for this, but also she's an arts unit, so most people are probably going to try and arrange one or more Castorias, which basically solves all battery-related issues on her own. In this case, I would suggest focusing arts and NP damage with CEs. Obviously, you can hybridize with Quick, but probably you want to make sure that her NP clears. And when speaking of improving NP damage, you can go all the way down to something like Black Grail if you actually spring for double Castoria. If you do not care about her starting with any charge at all, there's a lot of CEs you can do to just be making that NP clap harder, and which makes the looping for farming much more regular, or if you're using her even for boss stuff. Bakin's Bond CE is not too bad for a roll either if you're thinking of some challenge quest type setups. If you can actually go through all those bond levels, it gives the whole party, including herself, 15% damage up versus evil and demonic enemies, again, to make her hit that niche even harder. These are separate buffs as well, so keep that in mind. That just leaves us with the other stuff. Your ascensions and skills shouldn't be too bad. None of her mats are brand new. Keep your eyes peeled for pages, magatamas, and mirrors mostly. Again, should be pretty manageable. For banners, Bakin has already had a couple already. I know I said already twice. Of course, there's the launch banner for Hakenden, and I mentioned earlier, the second banner of the Mystic Eyes event next year will have her, so keep your eyes open for that. And as a limited SSR, obviously she's going to be on all future Lucky Bag GSSR campaigns. And also, I have been saying this a lot lately, but I will reiterate it. Given how JP is handling banners for limited servants lately, I expect her to get another raid up literally any day now. Maybe she'll get a swimsuit this year, and they'll run her normal banner as a pre-release? Who knows? I expect that this will not be your last chance to run her back in a normal summon banner environment. Anyway, that's it. I know it's a little short, but as a unit, Bakin is fairly straightforward, even if the story of Kyokutei Bakin is quite lengthy. I hope you have fun in the event, and make sure to let the dogs out. And all in all, that's it for me. I would usually do a longer spiel at the end, but I'm kind of rushing up against time to get this done before other stuff, so hey, like this video. Leave a comment if you want. Leave a comment if you don't want, even. Tell me in the comments how much you don't want to leave comments. I said I have to rush and I'm prevaricating. Anyway, join our Discord. Subscribe. Ring the bell. Check us out on Patreon. Check us out on our channel memberships. Give me your hard-earned blood money. That's it. I'll see you in like a frickin' week for Tamatomo. All right, cool. Omega, out. Should I like make a barking noise? Speaking of supporting us on Patreon, I have to give a quick shout-out to our patrons, including Adam DeHarp, G, Call Me Zed, Carlos, Dragon, Flightless Iceberg, Jeremy Vasquez, JDV9000, Just the Fae, Starlight, Legendary Boss Hunter, Liam Kessler, Reach, Kenji, Rogue Robin, Sharvor, Shumpire, Some Guy Named Bob, and Very the Crow. Thank you very much for your support, everybody.